Good evening, Littleton. Welcome to the June 20th, 2023 Select Board meeting. We will start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. With Mr. Clerk.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll do a quick overview of the agenda this evening. We have department board updates, a few recognitions. I will have to include fire and police updates and the human resources. We have a joint meeting with the Littleton Housing Authority, and I believe the Finance Committee.
Correct.
We will not need the Finance Committee this evening.
They will not be here tonight.
And we have public input and member updates. We will get into licensing of Anthony's coal-fired pizza. Some select board discussions on the agricultural working group, shade tree committee, and discuss the rescheduling of our retreat. We have a few appointments to get through as well. Finally lock some of those up, and we will approve the minutes, and then we will adjourn. So, to start things off.
Okay. Mr. Chair, a few comments on the agenda for tonight.
Sure.
Regarding the licensing, Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza had asked that we postpone consideration of their license until our next meeting on July 10th. So they will not be here tonight, so we're going to pass on that. And then the other item, which is item 7B, which is a vote to appoint interim assistant town administrator, just got a call today with Mr. Santilli, and he is not available. So we're going to respectfully withdraw that as well.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. So just a couple pieces of mail to the standard items. We have notice of our current openings on town boards. I would certainly ask anybody watching to look at this list, and if you're at all interested, please send in your interest to the town clerk's office or the town administrator's office. Notable items of the Clean Lakes Committee, Conservation Commission, Council on Aging, Disability Commission, Economic Development Committee, Little LCTV Advisory Committee, Master Plan Implementation Committee, PMBC, Permanent Municipal Building Committee, Personnel Advisory Committee, of which I think we're nominating 2 people today.
Yes.
So this does not include the updates that we're going to be having later in this meeting. Sustainability Committee and Zoning Board of Appeals. So just again, if anyone's interested, please reach out to us via the town clerk or the town administrator's office. Also, too, for the public, please feel free to sign up for public notifications from the town of Littleton via our website. So this is, we are still moving right along with our update to the website, but these names will be brought forward to you. The contact information you provide will be, again, carried forward with these continued updates with the new site. So FYI on that. So, okay. And that's all we have for mail, sir.
Wow. All right, next on the agenda, we have some department board updates and requests. So first off, we have a few recognitions. The first recognition is the Clean Lakes Committee recognition of Leon Weaver. I believe, Karen, you're the lead on this. Hello.
Oh, hi. So we wanted to take a few minutes to recognize Leon Weaver, who for over 30 years has served Littleton in a variety of capacities, but has kept quiet about his many contributions. And he has been an unsung hero until now. Leon has been a leader in pond protection in Littleton, first as a founder and president of Littleton and Air Spectacle Pond Association, and later as a founder of Littleton Clean Lakes Committee, of which I am newly a liaison. So, working in tandem, these 2 organizations have helped manage the infestation of in-pond plant life, monitored PFAS levels, and developed long-term plans for pond maintenance. Leon collects data on pond life, history, water levels, drought conditions, and he's happy to share his data with other pond associations, the water departments, both Littleton and Air, and in one instance, the Massachusetts State Highway Department, as they repaired our broken outlet, the cause of a major flood in 2010. So quite an impact. Beyond his work as a leader and planner, Leon is decisively hands-on when it comes to problem solving, as is the case with the frequent blockages that interfere with a healthy stream flow. Leon regularly arises at 3:30 a.m. Is that? Oh, my apologies. 3 a.m. Dons his waders and headlight and steps into the cold water of a dozen or so culverts to clear out the overnight blockages. He has done this in all weather for more than 30 years. And we are very grateful. We have a certificate of recognition.
Yeah, Leon, is there anything you wanted to say? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Only if you
can.
want
I'm
to.
sorry, I didn't know.
Just a question.
Okay. Did you want to say a few words?
Oh, yeah, thanks so much
thank you.
for these the accolades and a really good snapshot of what I've been doing over the last 33 years, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
I've enjoyed most of the work, except when I have to have surgeries. It's difficult cleaning out culverts when that happens. But appreciative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did we have
Thank
any?
you.
Mr. Chair, we do have a certificate of recognition for Leon, so I'd be happy to read it if you'd like.
Please.
So, okay.
Yes,
We
we
will.
did. Yep,
We will,
absolutely.
yes,
I didn't read that. Well,
absolutely. So,
thank you.
So, Leon, this is a certificate of recognition. Littleton Select Board recognizes Leon Weaver on behalf of the people of Littleton. Thank you for your dedication and longstanding commitment to the town of Littleton, to the Spectacle Pond Association, and Clean Lakes Committee. Your continued efforts in protecting our ponds and lakes through thoughtful leadership, data analysis, and old-fashioned physical labor, hence the knees, are noted and appreciated.
Yes.
This is from all the members of the Littleton Select
Great.
Board.
Thanks for
Thank you.
Out front here? Yeah, sure.
And would join, and is part of
Where are you going? It's 3 a.m. Oh, that's you guys. Yeah? We'll let the pros do it over there. All right. Look right here, please. And oh, that's a video. Hold on. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Okay. But that's every other year, 5 more years.
Thank you.
If you need another revenue stream, there's a large YouTube.
You stole my line.
There's a large YouTube set of videos of people unplugging culverts.
It was a whole
So
song.
yes, millions of views. If you just put a GoPro on your head.
I have to get out
My program is there and watch this video.
Thanks, Brian. Cranked up on your website, finally important.
Have you watched them?
Right.
They are delightful.
They're very satisfying.
They are.
All right.
They're so good.
Except for Halloween.
Right, our next recognition, the board would like to recognize the LELWD Board of Commissioners' recognition of Bruce Trumbull, as well as the Select Board. So, Mr. Trumbull's been part of the LELWD Board of Commissioners for over 20 years. correct?
Yeah, that's right, 23.
23 years. I don't believe he's here tonight, but we have, want to make sure we get this recognition in, and I think there's, he's in Florida right now, I think,
He
soaking
is,
up the
yes,
sunshine.
yes, right. If I may, Mr. Chair, if you remember, at one of our last meetings with the LELWD board, they mentioned that Bruce was moving along, a long tenure with the LELWD board, and I think, the board made a point at that meeting to want to thank Bruce for his years of service to the town, and even though he's down in Florida, he's with us in spirit. So if I could, I'd like to read the certificate of recognition. So the Littleton Select Board recognizes Bruce Trumbull on behalf of the people of Littleton in recognition of your 23 years of service to the Light and Water Board of Commissioners. thank you for your loyal and dedicated service. So our thanks to Bruce. I know some of the other members of the LALWD board will be here a little later because we have the Foxborough IMA. We'll make sure that we get this to them, and then they can then pass that along to Bruce.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Bruce. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is department updates, conservation, the Webster property update. Miss Amy Green, if you would. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Amy Green, the conservation agent, and I'm cold, so I'm shaking here. Just two updates. I'm actually going to flip them just really quickly. We did get the grant for the ADA trail out at Cloverdale, so that was a little bit over a $30,000 grant on about a $40,000 project. The town's match is going to be primarily from highway to help build it, as well as some labor to add some more onto the boardwalk down there. Hoping to get it done this fall, but I asked for 2 years in case something happens with highway, so we can get it done next year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
And then the other update I wanted to give you was on the Webster property grant application. The land grant is due July 13th, and most specifically tonight, we need to have the Department of Conservation Services, DCS, pre-approve the town meeting vote, which would not even be taken until the fall, but I have to do that ahead of time. So town council put that together. So I was hoping you would either approve it tonight or assign someone to approve it on your behalf, so I can get it down to the state so they can approve it and we can put it in there.
Okay.
And then I also, because it is due July 13th, I think your next meeting is July 9th
10th.
or 10th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
Even worse. Is if you would want to appoint someone to review the grant application ahead of time. It's a fairly straightforward grant application. There's maybe a 2-page write-up, and otherwise it's just checking off boxes within the form, actually. And we are working through now with Mr. Webster on what the highest and best use concept layout would be so that the appraiser can get going, because he's got to get moving.
So the appraiser has 2 weeks as well then to get this.
Pardon?
We need the appraisal as well before you can even do this.
Oh,
correct?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the appraiser's snapping at my heels.
Oh, okay,
So-
okay, great. All right.
The Littleton Conservation Trust is paying for the appraiser.
Yep,
So
okay.
they stepped up for that.
All right, any questions, first of all, Amy, on this?
You just need the authority from us to move forward.
Or appoint somebody,
Well, there's years.
Yeah, who's our the liaison, the Conservation Commission is, which member?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
You
I
could
thought
authorize-
it was me.
That's fine, if you want to do this, I can do this as well.
I wasn't even sure, to tell you the truth, but yeah,
I'll do it.
Okay.
yeah,
I'd like to do it.
yeah.
Sure.
All right,
If you're not
perfect.
available, just let me know and I'll
Yep.
make sure we.
Yeah,
this-
I'll be-
that- It is timely, so I want to make sure that it gets done, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for tonight, can I get approval to submit this town meeting draft language? Fairly innocuous and fairly
Yep, I read this.
boilerplate.
So so you want to, to put that in the application? Is
It'll
that what
be,
you want to do?
and it has to get pre-approved before,
Pre-approved,
by the
okay.
DCS,
So,
before I put it
okay.
in the application.
All right,
So I would theoretically mail it over to them, or email to them tonight.
Okay, I did not realize there was a motion, so I haven't worked one up, but we can say, move that the select board vote to approve of the draft language developed by Myers and Harrington to be placed into the November 1st special town meeting in support of the land grant.
Perfect.
For the
So
Webster
moved.
property.
Second.
That was easy.
All right, it's been moved
Second.
by Chuck. Oh, moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
That moves.
All right,
Thank
good night.
It's your work, Amy.
Nice.
It's awesome.
And Matthew, you can work with Amy
Yep,
on any of the
absolutely.
details. So Amy, you can follow up with Matthew, myself, if you need anything further on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start sending you some stuff.
Great.
Okay.
I look forward to it.
Okay.
All right, the next update will be fire. Update regarding ambulance fees with the interim fire chief, Mr. Tom Clancy.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So this is, I come before you this evening to talk about an ambulance collection policy, more so than fees. So presently, we do not have a collection policy to go after revenue that's owed to the town, in essence. And so I gave the board, I sent a draft proposal to Ryan to give to the board to talk about the ability for myself to go out and find a company that will do ambulance billing collection. I don't want to get into billing because that would be weeks to get it through all that. But in essence, what this does, it's a draft policy. It does not go after town residents. It aggressively goes after non-residents who have been provided a service by the Littleton Fire Department, transported to a hospital, and either choose not to pay or don't have the ability to pay. And in a nutshell, what this does is say, okay, if you can't pay, then it has to come before myself and say, yeah, you have a hardship and you don't have to pay. Otherwise, you have to pay us, and if you don't, you're going to collections. So that's for the non-residents. As far as town residents go, it's twofold. One is, for many private health insurance companies, they send a check to the patient who's supposed to send the check to the town, and they don't. So that in number 3, section A, that would be someone that gets treated as a non-resident. And secondly is the patient who has to meet a deductible in order for their insurance to kick in. They're required to meet that deductible so that we can bill for the full amount. And that would be for those two scenarios for a town resident. If someone comes and doesn't have health insurance and says, I can't pay it, that's called an abatement. They can either pay partial or we just waive it. Things of that. And I'm giving you the overlook of these 9 points rather than us going through this didactically and helping everyone sleep apnea. So I think it's a good place. We don't have one. I would say on average we're looking at around $200,000 to $225,000 a year we're not collecting in revenue. And a lot of that is also I spoke with so we contract with a billing company. This is different. The billing company right now sends out 6 bills, and on the 6th one, it's in pink, and it's after the 6th one they give up. So this would have a little tighter window at which point they go to collections, and many times insurance covers the part of the bill we send them, but the patients just take it as insurance paid, I'm not paying the rest, and that's where we see a lot of revenue that's not covered. Motor vehicle accidents are different. There are workman's comp claims when we transport from a business in town. Those are handled differently, but for a lot of our transports that are from a residence, a facility, this is why we need it. We just don't have anything right now. Even if someone comes to me, a resident, and says, I can't pay the bill, I don't have a means to do anything right now. So unfortunately, this has gone on too long, and I'm trying to be proactive and get this going. So I'm looking for either the board to say, kind of like I did with the fire alarm when I came before you and said, we need to make a change. Let me go out and see what we can do and come back to you and say, here's the best place to do that. And I think hiring a collection agency to handle this after 135 days is the best way to go about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had me at 225,000, that's half an ambulance right now per hour. Is it not?
I don't know. So if I could find one, I'd tell you how much they are. So.
Yeah, but okay, so this has been going on, I know, for several years. Since I even started on the finance committee, I know the select board at that time had discussed how we were collecting, how were we collecting, and I think what kind of led the charge, what kind of took the headline is when we jumped over to ALS, that kind of got pushed to the back. We were like changing our whole
Well, we changed billing companies at that point. So we're 5 years into the ALS program next month.
Okay.
And at which point, in July of 2018, we went with Coastal Billing, who's done a fantastic job. I mean, they really go above and beyond to the point of phone calls and everything else. But sometimes the address is incorrect. I mean, when we transport someone, that bill isn't instantaneous that day. It takes a while to get through insurance. So therefore, sometimes the people have moved. They've been deceased. Recently, I had one. We transported a resident's mother and the mother died before they settled the estate, and the bill showed up for the ambulance. They had no way to pay for it. So there's a myriad of different things that happen with ambulance billing, and like I said, if you've got a time block some night, I can come in and go over that. if you'd
So
like that.
I guess the question is, so you'd be the arbiter, I guess, of a
That's-
decision on whether hardships and things like that. I mean, that's the part that gets the sensitivity piece. We want to make sure that we're,
Yeah, I mean, I talked to some towns around here and came up with this.
Okay.
And it's to take, if you don't want to discuss that in public, but there's also things like when we get to a point where, all right, the billing company has sent this collection says it's no longer viable to try and even get the money, then I would get together with the town accountant to say, okay, we need to write this off. We're not going to collect it. And right now, I don't have that mechanism, so now I have 5 years worth of uncollectibles.
okay,
So some of those need to be written off, but I don't have a policy to go by and do that.
okay. I'll open it up to the board.
I have a couple things.
Sure.
So I think that this is a very sensible, and I think that you've done a good job of being kind to people who can't pay, and obviously people in Littleton. One of the things that I ran into, and this is from personal experience, is that you mentioned insurance only pays a portion. So in my case, insurance paid about 20%. So I can appeal to them, and I don't know how that's going to come out because it's still going on, but that would still leave me, $1,200, $1,600 out of pocket, basically. So I don't know if you want to include that as part of your plan and part of the policy.
Well, that is that's in there that says, I've tried, again, because according to the billing company, when I spoke with them today, this is on the insurance company to cover that. It was a 911 transport, and when they say we're only paying this much, it kind of falls on the patient to go after them and push them to get that.
And Coastal
But
sent...
if they can't, then you have to apply for a hardship, if that's the case.
Okay, so Coastal did a great job, and they sent me language that I should use with
Yep.
the insurance company to get them to, with all the details of what the codes and everything I needed to say to them, which was wonderful.
Yep.
But I guess we'll wait and see how effective that is with the different. I'm sure there will be some insurance companies who will never pay that amount. Right?
Yes.
Do you know what to expect, what we can expect from the collections agency as far as what they will take?
I don't.
Is it a percentage of the things
Yes.
they collect?
Yep.
Okay. all right.
Yep. And the same with an abatement where, for instance, someone has a $2,500 ambulance transport and says, I can afford $1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take $1,000 and you do this. Or they say, I have this deductible, I can't meet it, my husband lost it, whatever it is, we have to weigh those and decide if we're gonna do that, to allow that. I don't get a lot of that now, but I'd probably just open myself up to that.
And the last thing is the, what you mentioned about writing off debt, is that in this policy? Because I don't recall seeing it.
It is.
Okay.
It's to get together with the accountant during the year to determine, once the collection agency has determined that this isn't viable, the person's deceased, they can't find the money, they've moved, it would be coming back from the collection agency as this is not collectible, then I would meet with the town accountant
Okay.
and say, let's talk about what gets written off.
Okay. Thank you.
But I think, you're welcome, but I think at this point, I've got years of things that need to be, just to clean it up, but.
In terms of the abatement requests, is the plan to keep some sort of records in terms of just how many requests you get and how many are
Yeah,
approved?
they have to
and that-
provide them in writing. So they have to show that they've exhausted every means, not just come and say, I can't pay it.
Sure, I saw that the folks who apply for it have to go through a process, but will you, as the arbiter, be keeping some sort of record about just the big picture in terms of how many you get a year and how much?
Yeah, oh yeah, data like that, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's all relevant to, how's the ambulance program running? You know,
Yeah.
what percentage are we seeing that we write off versus bill? I mean, I can get that now, but billing is so convoluted, like the money that gets, the ambulance transport that I had today may not get billed to October or further. So it's a hard thing to quantify.
I imagine it's all through the accounting too, and there's gonna be codes and things like that are used through Munis, through our accounting software and stuff. I imagine, I don't know for sure.
Well, so it's,
To some extent.
everything's handled through Coastal, and then we get a deposit. and then that gets put into the,
Accounting system.
Accounting system.
yes, the accounting system that way. But in this case, this would all be outside of that, so we'd have some way of establishing them as account and put the
Right.
money in there and designating an organ object for putting this into, as I'm learning about how to pay bills now. I got this. Well, I do now. So, but yeah, that's what we would definitely have to track that.
I'll just say, I appreciate the time and effort you put into this, Tom, because there was significant improvement in collections when you switched over to coastal from the previous.
Yes.
Collections.
We got data, that should say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a natural progression, and hopefully it'll help, and to Gary's point, significant amount of money, and if we can recoup 50% of it, it's definitely money worth chasing. So appreciate the draft and
Okay.
the time and effort you put into it.
Anything, Mark?
So I had a few things. I appreciate the draft too. There's some language and I'd like to work with you offline to talk about just because some things weren't entirely clear. One question I do have though is what do you do with, if you're called to Westford to do a transport, how does that apply in
So-
this policy? Does, or
We have mutual aid-
Westford comes in?
So we have mutual aid agreements with the town. So anytime we go mutual aid, if we go mutual aid for ALS for paramedic service, and we don't transport, we ride in their ambulance, there's a flat fee plus any medicines we use. They're so whoever transports the patient bills. But we have mutual aid agreements that if our ALS is used to go to Harvard, Boxborough, wherever, and we don't transport, there's a flat fee for that. If we go mutual aid and transport, we bill.
And then do you bill them as if they were a Littleton resident or a Harvard resident?
It would be, I guess, I don't know. I mean, we bill them. So
yeah.
we're not going mutual aid to Littleton.
Right, well, I'm asking if Westford came and
Yeah.
transported Matthew to the hospital instead of Littleton, what would the bill be versus if Littleton transported?
It would
And the
be-
same with if you go to Harvard and transport something versus someone in Harvard. It just
would
seems
be-
like there should be some consistency.
It would be whatever Westford's policy is.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't turn around and say, hey.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we aligned our policies in any way with the
No,
community.
we have mutual aid agreements, but it's to provide the service, not necessarily, whoever transports bills, and then it falls under their policies.
So, okay. I just had some other things that I'll talk to you offline, but I think this is a great
Okay.
step, so.
And just as a reminder, I'm leaving Thursday on vacation.
This should be done by then.
Hold on to those. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, police. Chief Pinard will be discussing the update regarding firearms dealer inspection policy and the Boxborough IMA for the animal control officer. Good evening, Chief.
Evening, thank you for having me tonight. So the firearms dealer inspection policy is something that we've actually been doing for the last 4 years. The only change to this policy basically is that we're memorializing it so that we actually do the inspections and we have a policy that follows us through the inspections. The biggest change is we had created a checklist 4 years ago in the inspectional policy, and Sergeant Scola and Sergeant Landry created a checklist as to what we're actually looking for when we do the inspections. The state, after the article in the Boston Globe, decided that they were going to come up with their own checklist, and they made a fillable form. Basically, they took our form and copied it. Added a few more things to it, so it's just the policies stating that we're doing the yearly inspections, that's all.
So right now, this looks like the same thing the state's requiring for all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, any discussion on this? I know we've seen this, you've been working on this a while, we've seen it in the past.
I appreciate, same, I appreciate that you got out in front of this, I mean, 4 years ago, when you brought this before us. Appreciate that, and kind of blazing the trail. Whether
The
it's like,
form is nice that the state came up with it. It is a fillable form, so
Yeah.
when they're doing the inspection, they can have their laptop and just fill it out and it saves that way electronically. and it's easy.
always room for improvement, and that's great that they, there are definitely some similarities between what you put forward and what they put forward, so that's a kind of a best form of flattery, right? It's plagiarism.
Absolutely.
I guess the one question I would have is, if, on that checklist, if one fail, is that's a showstopper for the?
That's correct.
Okay. Just
We
wanted-
give them time to improve on and redo it, like a 24-hour window to actually fix it. Or a lot of times the fix can actually be made while we're standing there.
Yep.
Like if the sign was down on the table or it wasn't up open.
Okay.
So put the sign up so it would actually be visible. So a lot of those things, the little things like that, can be fixed, and that's where a lot of the failures actually happen. In
Correct.
regards to the weeds of it, you know, looking at the different weapons that were transferred and stuff like that. That's stuff that takes time that the ATF's going to catch before we catch it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
All right.
So I have a couple of questions. One small question on the policy is, in section 2A2, it says at least 2 weeks prior to conducting an inspection, the inspector, if deemed appropriate, shall contact the firearms. Who determines deemed appropriate? What does that mean?
Basically, myself and the inspectors will.
So how do you
deem
determine
appropriate.
what appropriate means? Because that seems like very squishy for a policy.
So the reason we put that in there, and we worked with town council in regards to this wording, a lot of the time, since we do have the most gun dealers in the state, in a combined area, a lot of times if we're doing inspections and we see someone that's open, we can say, okay, then we'll just do that inspection while we're there.
Okay.
So it's usually the dealers that are transferring 1 or 2 guns a year and they're just using it for hobbyists. That will be it. Someone that's like CAG Arms, that's transferring a lot of firearms on a regular basis, that will have a request to the state to get what they have.
Okay. And how does this align with the new firearms bylaw that was the zoning bylaw and things? Has this been updated to reflect those?
Yeah, we're following the state guidelines for the inspections, so this is basically just going to fall in line to it.
And then I have one procedural question, and I don't know if it's for you or, I don't know if this is, I know obviously you're enforcing the policy, but I thought that the way the vote originally went when this was put in place, this was a select board policy that you're enforcing, not a department policy, and I'm not sure which, if we vote as a board that this is the policy versus it's a policy that you implement, more or less, that we approve of, but not,
Yeah.
like we just nod up and down and say, okay, or if we have to adopt it as a select.
So
board
I'm going to
policy.
ask the board to adopt it tonight if possible, just so I can put it into effect on July 1st. Whereas otherwise, I would give you the policy, you'd have 30 days to review it. If there's no questions in 30 days, it then goes into effect. But if the board votes on it tonight to accept the policy, then I can put it into effect July 1st immediately.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Are we comfortable tonight?
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to
Yeah.
review it.
So the only, I'm comfortable adopting it, but typically on policies, we do 2 meetings. So I'm fine if we want to adopt it or if we want to say,
I would just qualify that we've known this has been coming for a long time, so, I mean, it's not, that typically you do 2 meetings when something's fresh. I mean, with the respect of the board, this isn't fresh.
Well, I feel like we do 2 meetings so we can read it, cogitate on it, and then come back with any, but I also don't have any problem approving this tonight.
yeah.
I would like to entertain a motion to approve this tonight. We need to get this enacted for July 1st. That's my,
And I think you are correct, Mark. If it is a policy that you guys are creating, then yes, it is a 2-meeting policy. This is a policy that we created with the police department, so I think you are correct in that.
Okay.
And that's not even a policy, that's just a standard that we follow.
We don't have a policy on policies.
Right.
okay. I'm ready for a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Move the select board vote to approve the Littleton Police Department's firearms dealer inspection policy.
So,
It's moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you, Chief. On to the next agenda item.
Next agenda item is the MOU with the town of Boxborough in regards to animal control. As you're aware, we do not have our own animal control. We are a tri-town with Boxborough, ourselves, and Stowe. So we contribute to 1/3 of the entire cost of the animal control officer. This is the same agreement we've had going for the last 4 years, I think even longer than that. But this is the same agreement, it just increases because of medical care and wages and whatnot. The only thing I will add is I apologize for this coming to you so late. This is not on any fault of mine or ATA Ryan Ferrara, because we have been trying since before the first of the year to get a copy of this from the town of Boxborough. So has in the town of Stowe been doing the same exact thing. So myself and the TA from the town of Stowe, we're going to meet in a couple weeks, and over this next fiscal year, we're going to see if this is fiscally responsible for the both of us, or if it's something we want to endeavor amongst the two of us only.
So if we approve this, are we voting to approve, I assume we are voting to approve this tonight if we,
I would ask the board to approve this today.
For this fiscal year.
This is fiscal July 1, and if we don't vote on it, approve it today, we have no animal control coverage as of July 1st. But we do have a 60-day clause in there if we wanted to get out of this MOU, and we find it mutually agreeable.
okay.
A couple of questions we have that are going to come up in the next couple months after we have some meetings. So I'd like to ask the board if they could please vote on this policy, this MOU, to accept it.
Okay, so the gist of this, just the tone of your voice, is you're not completely happy with...
It's absolutely correct.
Okay, all right.
I'm not.
I think there's been some frustration dealing with other intermunicipal agreements with the town of Boxborough. They've gone through a lot of change, a lot of transition, and it's been very difficult for any number of us to try to negotiate IMAs, intermunicipal agreements. And I think you were a victim of that as well, Ryan, relative to this. So
I can't thank Ryan enough. He
navigated.
was very helpful in trying to wade through it, and we finally got some
Some progress, yeah.
some progress.
Right, any other comments?
I think
So, I don't remember actually seeing the agreement. So you're just saying the gist of the difference is a little bit in cost?
That's all.
And this is the first we've seen it.
Yeah,
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it made the packet, and actually didn't make the
It didn't make
packet,
the
and the
packet.
reason for that is
Didn't have a
because it
packet.
was just so last minute.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in fact, actually, because we're working with Stowe, we pointed out the original piece that came to us was, they did some math wrong. So, it's been iterative, and we're all working in good faith, but
Math wrong.
that's why, again, I think the chief qualified it with an apology to the board, and this is why we're here now with this. So, but basically, it is an update of the existing agreement that we have with them, and as the chief mentioned, I think we're going to sort of continue to pursue conversations with Boxborough and Stowe as partners, and trying to see what else we might be able to do to make this a stronger agreement.
Wasn't, if I may, wasn't Bolton or Berlin looking to jump in as well, which would have
That's correct.
divided up our,
Bolton and Harvard, which would have caused more work for the actual animal control officer. But would
Spread
have
them a
reduced
little
our
thinner.
costs, maybe minimal, maybe not, I'm not
Okay.
sure. But we would have had to compensate her for the extra work she'd be doing, so. Those talks are gonna be ongoing.
okay.
All right, so $33,733.16, that's our cost per year, $2,811.10 a month.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman. And you're completely comfortable with the out clause, with the
I am
60-day out
completely
clause?
comfortable with the out clause. Yes, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion for
We
this?
do? Or we should.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Is it
So, I think we did not. So
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet.
with the
Oh, it's in the packet. All right.
move that the select board vote to approve the fiscal year 2024 intermunicipal agreement with the town of Boxborough for animal control officer services?
Second?
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew, all those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you, chief.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great, have a good night.
ATA Ferrari, do you want me to stick around for the conversation? in the
Please.
other section?
Please, yes.
All right, next up is Human Resources. Michelle, good evening. This will be a employee handbook, sick and personal leave revision policy. Revising our current policy, excuse me.
Revising. Good evening, Michelle Vibert, Human Resources Director.
here to talk about. I won't read the entire policy. I don't want to bore anyone to death. But the short of it is we are looking to revise our existing sick leave policy to be consistent with bargaining a few years ago and the unions changing their sick leave policy. This newer policy does mimic the fire policy in the union agreement. There are some tweaks to it, which I'll go over. But I will briefly go over just the highlights of the policy that we're going to change. So in section B, we are making, instead of front-loading sick time, which was you would get your 15 days on July 1st, you will be now accruing sick leave as all the rest of our employees do as well. But the addition that we added onto this policy for our non-union employees is that you're allowed to accumulate sick leave from year to year now. Currently, you are not allowed to do that. So that is a change in this policy, that you will be allowed to accumulate sick leave from year to year, but we are putting a cap on it as a maximum of 600 hours. In order to give you a time frame, it would take you about 5 years to accumulate 600 hours if you used no sick time for 5 years. Going on, basically, a lot of it is notification, requirements for paperwork, documentation. Those are all the rest of the policy that we have changed, and just again keeping consistency with the unions. And then Ryan, if you go to section J, please. So this portion is accumulated sick leave shall not be taken immediately prior to retirement. Again, this is consistent. We have no buyout requests in this policy. Our other unions do have a buyout, but we are not requesting a buyout at this time. We chose to put the cap of 600 hours and allow them to carry over their sick leave balance. So at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th, whatever balance they have for sick leave, we would be carrying that over into fiscal year 24. And then they would also, in addition, begin to accrue their normal 15 days month to month for the fiscal year. We did keep the only portion we did keep out of the existing policy is letter K that you can see. They do get awarded more personal days if they took a certain amount of sick time. And I did get asked a great question earlier by Karen, and thank you for asking that. There is actually an error in this section, so it does say new employees will receive 3 personal leave days to be added to their personal accrual if they've only taken so much sick time. It should actually say 2. So I would ask the board to allow me to revise that second portion there that says 3 personal leave days to 2. Newer employees should not be getting more than existing employees for the taking of sick time. Another highlight of this policy is that we will be removing the town paid short-term and long-term disability if you've been an employee for a year. We have provided at this time through AFLAC, we provide short-term disability at their own expense, and we also provide long-term disability at the employee's expense through the company called the Standard. So we have that. We are full on board with them. We are working with them to see if they can have a mini, we'll call it open enrollment, as this language change being a qualifying event. What that would allow is the employees this impacts to have the opportunity, if they didn't sign up at this past open enrollment in April, to potentially sign up going forward because of their language change. We do not have a determination on that from either company yet. If they do determine that, the earliest they could come on board would be 9/1 as an effective date. If they don't, Ryan and I would most likely go back to the drawing board, because we did receive feedback from town employees that, if I'm not allowed to sign up at that time, I'm losing my short-term disability bank that I currently have hours in, because that would be wiped out with this policy. So my proposal would be to potentially carry over their short-term disability bank balance as of June 30th if we cannot have the approval to open enrollment again for these individuals.
Doesn't like the policy.
I'm HR, I can't please everyone. those are just the main highlights. I know Select Board Member Morrison had a few additional questions, one of them being under Section F in notification. There really is no definition that a medical appointment is a valid reason for taking sick leave. I would also ask the board that, I think that's a fair suggestive edit to include in there. We don't need to spell out every single reason, but I think it's a fair suggestive edit to allow a medical appointment to be part of sick leave. And then in Section H, we have another edit that I would agree with in making. The language says the employee shall be allowed to utilize unpaid leave. Shall be can, force you into requiring the approval to do so. So I ask that we change that to may allow. And that is all I have.
And just if I can add one thing too, we did present this to staff, 2 separate meetings, to go over these changes with them and to seek their feedback and input. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for bringing that up. We did also have this vetted by our Labor Council, and we also had it vetted by our employees, which we did receive feedback from. We held 2 staff meetings, and then afterwards I circulated the draft, and folks sent feedback back to us, like, are we going to be allowed to carry over our short-term disability bank? What about this? What about that? Do the personal leave days go away if we only take so much sick time? So we went over all of those. We do have some additional comments that, people suggested maybe PTO time, and we don't have sick leave, personal leave, vacation leave. That's a long-term look at a policy versus our current policy. This is still a step of improvement to our current. So we are starting here again to be consistent with the unions, but we did receive feedback from staff, and thank you to everyone that did give that feedback, but we did get feedback from them.
Any questions?
Just one, if we vote to approve this, how will we resolve the short-term disability bank, whether or not it's a qualifying event from the insurer?
So my proposal would be to, if they say no, my proposal would be to come back and say, can we then add language to this to roll over whatever their balance was in that bank? And I can tell you, I ran a report there. If we did that, there would probably only be about 2 people that would hit the max accumulation of 600 hours, because it would all go into your sick leave accrual. So there would only be 2 employees that already hit the 600. There would be about 26 that would hit maybe half of that.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'd seen this. I know we had sat down, Michelle, and gone over it, so it's a little fresher to me. I know this is a lot to look at, but
So I have a couple. So if someone works 30 hours per week, they're considered full-time. They still hit the 600-hour mark, or they hit some other number?
They would still get the 600 mark because their accrual is based on their hourly schedule. So
And
if
the
it's 35
part-time employees
hours,
are still 600 hours when they max out? It's not, I'm asking what's prorated.
the accrual is prorated.
Okay.
So the
but
accrual they're
cap is
receiving.
not.
they accrue slower.
Correct.
Okay.
So instead of an 8-hour day, if you're 40 hours, you accrue. If you're 35 hours, you 7
And if I
hours.
used four sick days, I get 2 personal days, but then I still roll over 11 sick days, even though I ended up with 2 personal days. So we're being pretty generous there, aren't we? On what
Yes,
we're
but we
giving?
also did not include a buyout, which was a big portion of this policy. So the buyout is a max of $5,000 for the unions, and you get half of that, half of whatever your balance is, up to a max of $5,000.
And I think, if I may, I think some of the perspective in that is you don't want to pay out from the non-union employees, the payout for using your sick leave appropriately, right? I mean, the same rules apply in this case, but we also wanted to be able to provide, some element where year to year that you've been able to accumulate some of that, so it could be something you could lean on for a short-term medical issues. I mean, if anything, we're trying to think about different ways. We talk about retention and and helping employees along. And the hope is that this is one of those things that we can do to improve upon that situation and make it a stronger benefit for employees. So that when they think about balancing things out, and like, okay, another opportunity, they may have this bank, and this would be a plus in that column.
Okay.
Anything?
No,
Good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, let's look for a motion that's going to have the, as amended.
Move that the select board vote to approve of the revised sick policy leave as amended.
Second.
If I may, does that need to be contingent on the approval of the insurance companies of a?
I would come back to you at that time because it would be specific language that I would have to add.
It would be an
To
amendment.
the policy, so I would amend it.
Must be a new policy.
I would amend that.
So yes, we'll come back if we have to.
So this will go in, we're still in discussion. We have a motion and a second on the, right, okay.
Yes, that would help. We are trying to put this in effect July 1st.
July 1st, thank you.
Yes.
All right. I have a motion in the second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's a lot of red ink. All right. We are on to our joint meetings. So we have a joint meeting with Littleton Housing Authority, an appointment. Do we have a quorum in the room, I hope?
Gino's here.
We have one,
What's
two.
here? Matthew's
Is Gino here?
Gino's
Yes,
here.
Oh, so yes, we have a quorum.
You've opened your meeting, we're good to, good
Yes,
to
we
go?
have a quorum.
Fantastic.
Bartley, you want to call the meeting to order?
Well, just structurally should, in order for you to have a quorum, Matthew needs to be part of that.
I'll vote as the housing authority, not as select board.
Okay.
Structurally, though, he's okay being here.
I think this appointment, we all vote together, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's depending on how many members do we have here?
You only have two, so in order for him to have a quorum, Matthew needs to be
Three.
part of the
All
housing
right,
authority.
so tonight, you are part of the
Housing
house for
authority.
this particular, thank you. You have a quorum. All right. So are there any questions on the application of Gene Bracken? Ms. Bracken?
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, please.
Just for information, I have an application from somebody I believe is not here, Mary Ann Randall, who has filled out an application. She's a retired realtor and has not uploaded her resume. So there is a second candidate. I'm not favoring one or the other.
I just, if I may, I think we did receive another application, but it came in after the deadline, so I don't, so I think that the inquiry was made today, and we just said that it's what the deadline was for, I always hate doing anything that may shut up public participation, but in this case, I think the deadline was missed.
Okay.
But that's my understanding.
However, we can reach out to that person because we had
Plenty of other boards.
2 seats on the Affordable Housing Trust.
Two openings, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Mary Ann would be a great asset to the housing
Okay,
authority as
great.
well. But yeah, she's a great person. She's very, very involved. So Ms. Bracken's before us?
Yes.
Do you want to say a few words?
Oh, do you want to say a few words?
Sure, why not? Give me an opportunity.
Hey, come on up.
I'm Jane Bracken, King Street. I've been very fortunate in my 50-plus years in Littleton to have had excellent places to live that I could afford that really worked for me. But I know that's not true of everybody. And I've been watching the housing situation in Littleton get more and more dire. And if this is one small step that I can take to maybe help change things in some way, optimistically, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Thanks, Gene.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I mean, I think your experience, 50 years in Littleton, your experience, you've seen the changes and the challenges, like you mentioned.
It's changed a lot.
Thank you.
I fully endorse Gene Bracken
Okay.
As a housing authority member.
as a housing authority member and as a human being.
All right, I will look for a motion.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11, to vote to appoint Jeannie Bracken to fill the vacancy on the Littleton Housing Authority through the May 2024 annual town election.
Second.
I'm going to give that
You
one to
can't second it,
Matt.
Matthew, because you're on the other one.
Oh, yeah, shoot, sorry.
So, motion's made by Mark, seconded by Chuck. This will be a full, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Need a motion?
Aye.
We have unanimous vote by both boards. It is unanimous, put that in the record.
Unanimous? Yes, please.
Thank you.
Get sworn in.
Yes, that's the next comment.
Amend that motion.
Please
to
see
say
the town
Housing
clerk
authority as well.
as soon as
Just
possible.
amend the motion to say housing
Thank
authority.
you.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
All right,
Can I say?
we good?
You read it.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on. We have a
that's
joint
right.
meeting. Actually, we don't have a joint meeting.
That's right.
Just to let you know, the next portion of this, we will be discussing the Littleton Water Department water extension in the Boxborough IMA that the town may be familiar with, some of the work that's been done on that. We have a limited time to get this done. I believe by July 1st is when I think the EPA put demands on Boxborough. So this came in front of us at town meeting. We said we'd get to the IMA. We said we'd involve the finance committee. The reason why they're not here tonight is they've already recommended this. They met earlier in the month. They recommended this. They got all their questions, I believe, answered, I hope. But I know that some things might have changed between now and then. We have, I believe the two board members are
Matthew and Chuck.
you two, so. What I would ask, as we continue on any of these subcommittees, I think it's important that if one of you can't be at these meetings especially, but also any of the subcommittees that we get put on that require, obviously, a lot of our attention, that if you can't, just let the board know, say, can anyone fill in for me on this meeting? I can't make it. I think we kind of do that. We've done that in the past. But I think the last meeting, neither one of you were available. Is that,
The last meeting of the sewer?
was it the IMA?
No, it was the intermunicipal agreement.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
it was the discussion between Corey and
Yeah.
Ivrea.
Yeah, so
That's
just,
correct,
if,
yeah.
those are the things, just so we can make sure that we're staying up to
Yeah.
date. It's such an important document, so, and that goes for anything we have going forward. All right, so let's, I'm hoping everybody had a look at this. I want to have town council. I have asked Ryan to step back on this a little bit because, A, there's a lot going on in town, but also connection, he was the town administrator of Boxborough as well, so and he potentially could be our next town administrator, so I didn't want to muddy the waters there and have him be involved in something of this magnitude for both towns. So that's why I think that's the first time I brought it up, that it's so important for us to be at these meetings because we're kind of running this as far as the town side goes. All right, that's a lot of talking, but I want to hear any discussion for town council. Brian,
If I could, I think Corey's here. So Corey, if you don't mind coming up just to give a general overview of where we stand, and town council is here as well. Tom and Andrew, we have what you have, or what we'll go through with the IMA after, I think Corey's got a chance to kind of give you an overview of where we are, just to kind of go through some of the details of where we are right now, the red line version of the IMA that we can then go over after Corey can kind of give the big picture of where we are, if you don't mind, Corey.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as you all know, we've been working with the Littleton Town Council and Town of Boxborough staff to negotiate this intermunicipal agreement over the past few months that would allow us to extend water infrastructure into Boxborough, into just the west side of Boxborough, to help them solve a PFAS contamination issue there. So in addition to this being just kind of the right thing to do, it also provides a significant financial benefit to the town of Littleton that we discussed at the town meeting last month. Makes us eligible for a loan from the Clean Water Trust through the state at 0% interest rate for not just the Boxborough extension, but the associated Taylor Street Well project, which is a project that the town needs to undertake anyways. So at that town meeting last month, the town meeting authorized a $19.2 million borrowing authorization to finance both of those projects. The Clean Water Trust requires that borrowing authorization be in place by June 30th, which is just 10 days from now, in order to ensure that funding remains available to us. However, the town meeting vote was contingent on the execution of this IMA by that same date, June 30th. So I attended the Boxborough Select Board meeting last Monday night, I believe it was, where they voted to authorize their town administrator to execute the agreement subject to minor modifications by their town council. Our Board of Water Commissioners just voted to authorize our general manager to sign the IMA, similarly subject to edits made by town council. So we're here tonight asking you all to take a similar vote authorizing the town administrator or chair of the select board to sign the agreement subject to town council edits. So as Gary just described, there was a little bit of a flurry of emails between last Thursday and today, really on some of the more minor points of the IMA. That was just due to the fact that Boxborough's town council wasn't available for the previous 3 weeks until last Thursday, so they provided some additional edits at that time that we worked through last Friday and then even today. So the latest draft that I think was sent to you within the past few hours, which I think is what we have up on the screen here. Right?
Yeah, it actually hasn't been sent because it was just because of the flurry. So I think that we can start going through that, and, but that's why town council's here to go through those changes, so the board's aware of it. And I do see some members of the FinCom here as well. So
okay, great. So the version that's up on the screen then is anything that's clean is something you've already seen prior to last week, and then the red line edits are what is new since last Thursday. So really, the most significant change is language around the quantity of water that will be provided to Boxborough and the associated costs. So if you remember through our description at town meeting, the entirety of the infrastructure located in Boxborough will be recovered through betterment fees on the Boxborough customers. And then the percentage of water that they will use from the Taylor Street well, that same percentage will be applied to any costs for infrastructure required to get water, from the well to the treatment plant. So 65,000 gallons per day was the number we've been talking about. That may need to be modified slightly up to maybe 75,000 gallons per day. Really has a negligible impact on our ability to provide that water, but it does end up changing the percentage of the cost that they would share. So we just need that flexibility in there since we won't have that number completely finalized in the next 10 days. So that's really the reason for this change that you see on the screen in front of you right now, as well as a couple additional changes further down.
My apologies. Okay, so we're there, and okay. Want to talk about this? Any changes here?
Yeah, so it's similar. That language has changed for that same reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's a legalese piece.
Okay.
And then here we left the 65,000 gallon per day number in there as a point of reference. I'm trying to read here. So then that new language was added to specify how we're arriving at that number, and that's primarily through metered water usage data at all of the parcels that have a public water system, since they are required to meter that. So we have that information. And for those handful of parcels that don't have that information, their septic permit volumes which is a common way to estimate water usage for a property.
Could you explain what V there means?
Yes, so this is allowing us that flexibility if we need to go from the 65,000 mentioned in the previous paragraph 4 to say 75,000, for example, that we can do that. However, we can't go beyond what would be allowed by the Interbasin Transfer Act, which I can tell you is about 100,000 gallons per day. So that would be kind of the upper limit. Not that we intend to go that high, but that's the limitation placed on us there.
And that's at our discretion. That change from 65,000 up, Littleton is.
Water Commission.
Water Commissioners,
okay.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could just a quick thing, just could you tell the board what interbasin transfer is?
Yeah. So there's a state law called the Interbasin Transfer Act that regulates essentially moving water from one watershed to another. And if it goes beyond a certain threshold volume, in this case about 100,000 gallons per day, then you need to get a permit through them that's pretty onerous to acquire. You have to, prove the necessity of it and all kinds of mitigating factors and what you're going to do to minimize the sort of environmental impact of moving water out of one watershed to another. So we don't want to go through that, obviously. And so that's why I'm saying that 100,000 gallon per day threshold is what we'd be allowed to do without getting such an onerous permit.
And conceptually, the state's trying to say water that's withdrawn from a basin should stay within that basin, conceptually what they're trying to do. So interbasin transfers, they try to limit to the great extent that they can. So FYI.
So on this section then, if we're saying it's, let's say 65,000 now, and we can say it could go up to 100,000, is the number capped at the time we sign the agreement effectively, or at some future date where some property in Boxborough can sign on and say, we want the extra 35,000?
I mean, it would always be subject to our board's approval, if anything beyond the 65,000. So.
The agreement says 65,000.
Right,
today.
That's the number that's in there today.
Well, yes, but then it says we can increase it, so I'd really rather have it.
Subject to the Water Commission's reviewing.
Personally, I'd rather have it capped what it is in the agreement to something, so that if Boxborough, one of those the old Cisco property they were redeveloping, and they could all of a sudden decide they want a lot more water, and now we're providing them a lot more water than than the citizens originally signed up for, right? That would be my concern.
Yeah. Well, I think that particular concern gets addressed elsewhere in here that we talk about, but I hear what you're saying there.
I have a separate question about financing. The betterment fees are applied towards the Boxborough portion of the system. Is that accurate?
Plus whatever percentage of the
Plus
rest.
13% of the rest, right? So we guarantee that loan, however Littleton does?
Yeah.
So where is it formalized that Boxborough will pay back that loan? Like how is that?
It's in there.
Oh, where is it? I didn't.
It's actually not redlined anymore because that was in the previous version, so it's.
Is it under betterments, Corey? Okay, so
That's the part that FinCom signed off on already. That didn't change.
which letter is it, Corey?
I believe it is.
D.
Section 8 identifies how the costs are determined, and then section C we calculate within a certain period of time what that actual betterment is.
Section D, assessment.
And then D is the assessment. Yeah.
But does D say Boxborough shall pay? Does D?
Later on in
Section F.
Where is
No, it's section F under that same betterment section. So it says
No, that's
non-assessment.
non-payment.
There's a billing on, I think it's section E. Within 30 days of collection, Foxborough shall remit betterment assessments collected pursuant to this agreement to Littleton.
I'm sorry, where are you on that?
Section 8, page 7.
Okay, move on.
Section
Paragraph 8.
08. Okay.
Billing, under billing.
Section 8. Did we just get to that, guys? Billy?
Oh, they're going to remit to us, to
Yes.
Littleton, and then
Yes.
we're going to pay?
Within 30 days.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. Right.
The most important piece of the whole document.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, look, you know,
Great question.
and it does sound like the issue with the non-named properties has been resolved to everyone's satisfaction.
The undeveloped
Okay.
properties, yes.
That was the last thing. Okay.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions.
And the allowance, I think, of Littleton properties on the way.
Yes.
That was addressed in here as well, because I know some of the residents had
Yep.
questions.
And they're paying only that piece that's in Littleton,
Yep.
not the Boxborough piece.
Yep.
They're paying the betterment just in the Littleton piece.
We can just go through, you want to go through the rest of it, just to see
Sure.
any of the red line issues that,
Sorry, what was the indemnification change up above, Ryan?
bear with me.
Section E, under,
Abatement deferral.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think I'd have to defer to town council. Andrew, do you want to take a shot at this one? I know that
Sure.
this is E, abatement
Yeah.
deferral.
So this is an addition, Boxborough's, since we are asking them to approve any abatements, or, sorry, we approve any abatements, but they're asking us to contribute to any defenses that they have to pay for attorney's fees for folks that want to challenge the abatement. So because we have
Makes
the
sense.
authority. to
Oh, so
approve-
since
So we're making the decision,
We're making the
So we have to
They have
defend our
to,
decision,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom Harrington, from a policy perspective, your decision, but from a policy perspective, it makes sense.
Yeah.
We're the ones that are assigning the betterment, so we should support the defense of it.
Yep.
And I did see that in the legal fees, it was apportioned according to, so if we couldn't agree, there's a phrase about if the two parties couldn't agree to who pays the legal fees for, I gotta find it now.
it's collection and tax foreclosure legal fees, A, page 6.
If they cannot agree, Littleton's share shall equal the percentage of unpaid municipal liens attributable. Can you parse that for me? Because why would the liens not be attributable to unpaid betterments
So
in this
typically,
case?
we're envisioning, somebody is not paying their water assessment, they're also not paying other municipal
No.
charges.
Okay.
So we're just agreeing to pay the portion that's attributable to Littleton charges.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm going to continue to scroll through here.
Oh, I see, then it has an example. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Oh, the example, okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's under A, okay. And again, the red line is just changes from the last version that you would have seen.
Can I, under the terms, I have a couple questions on
Sure.
section 11, I guess.
11, okay. Yep.
One is, since this is, yeah, it says 25 years, so I assume that means we're borrowing for 25 years?
No, the plan is to borrow for 30 years. The IMA is actually, I believe the IMA is actually irrelevant once the general legislation is passed, so we have 25 years to get the general legislation passed,
Okay,
I believe.
well, no, it says, and then the following is, the general court fails to enact legislation by June 1st, 2026, this agreement shall be null and void? Is that the general legislation you're referring to?
Right. Can I take you back a step and set the stage? Okay. So, the IMA, so setting the stage, part one. At town meeting, we voted to authorize the borrowing of 19.2.
Correct.
Or thereabouts, and it's subject to the execution of an IMA between this board, water commissioners, and Boxborough Select Board by July 1st.
So in order to effectuate that vote, we need to have an IMA. The IMA is, think of it as an agreement to agree. So, and if this were a cake, it is not yet fully baked, right? There is lots of things that we don't know yet. If you ask me, am I comfortable with you signing this tonight? I am. Or authorizing the chair to sign it, because we suspect that Boxborough might have a few more changes before this is all said and done, and before July 1st. But there's a lot more to know. But what this is really doing is creating the framework for the general legislation that we're going to file. So this will eventually go away because there will be general legislation that that hopefully that the legislature passes that we act under. So this is the kind of the framework for what's going to go in that general legislation. But if I were a betting man, I would bet that we will probably come back to you with a later version of this, or maybe two later versions of this, as we learn more things through July and August and September. There's a lot we don't know yet. Not a lot, but there are some things that we don't know yet that we want to know before the general legislation goes in. And there's some, for instance, we need to understand MassDOT's position on the 6.5 million grant to the town. That's part of this deal. We need to understand what they're going to expect, if anything, from the Boxborough residents before they agree to that. So that will all be part of what might be this version or what might be a later version. So I just wanted to set the stage, and the version you're looking at is already old, right? Because this afternoon we were negotiating, kind of making further edits that we thought further clarified things. So we're going to take you through those changes once we get you comfortable with this, but just trying to make you or help you understand that there will be more to come. Kind of where the rubber meets the road is with the general legislation, and that we are comfortable with you signing the IMA, but there are still kind of facts not in evidence that will reveal themselves kind of over the course of the summer that will bring back and maybe likely edit this.
And Tom, if I could, please correct me if I'm wrong, but any changes that are made to it would then also go back, as the tri-party piece, that would also go back to LELWD and the Finance Committee for them to review and consider those changes as well.
Right. So you're bringing in the Finance Committee, and that's fine. They are not a signatory to this agreement, but if they're part of your process, then it goes to the FinCom too.
I think that.
Yeah, this evening I was interested, as far as the Finance Committee's portion, is what had actually changed since they met and tonight. And it doesn't appear that anything on the financial side moved in a negative way from what has changed. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I have some, maybe they're procedural or questions. So if I'm a little uncomfortable with this term that says if the general court fails to enact legislation by June 2026, then this agreement's null and void. Because are we going to be spending money before there's the general agreement, before the general court? If so, then theoretically we could have the entire system built, they'd never pass this and we don't get betterments, right?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, we're still early in design and permitting for the project, but in theory, the contracts would be awarded for construction about this time next year, so 2024. So then we would start spending money, I guess.
Well,
Can't issue betterments until the general legislation.
Right.
Yeah. So we can't, right, so bettering a property in another town is not authority that is typically granted to a town, right? So that's why we need this legislation to allow us to do it. If they haven't enacted the general legislation by that time, we can't issue betterments. We don't have the funds from Boxborough anyways to pay for it. So we would
not be able to sign contracts in that case, or we would, but it would be at our peril?
I think it's the second, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would put the risk on us to do that, but the goal here is to push the next legislative session to get this moving to our representatives, get this done.
And the legislature wants this to happen. We're basically bailing them out
Yeah.
because the Commonwealth screwed up.
Economic injustice there, you know, all the pieces.
Right.
MassDOT.
So
exactly.
although there is risk and we are at our own peril, it's a calculated risk and very low. Would you agree?
You never ask a lawyer whether it's a low risk, Chuck. You should
Get
know
a drink
that.
of water, this is gonna take a while. I can't handicap how the legislature
Understood.
thinks, but from all we're seeing, it should be,
It's in their best interest.
it's, right. We're all kind of pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, and they're aware of it too. Senator Eldridge is aware of this. I mean, they know this is coming.
Yeah, Senator Eldridge, Rep. Arciero, and Rep. Senna have all been on multiple large meetings that we've had with Boxborough on this project, so they're all well aware. We'll be working closely with them over the next several months.
I guess the questions are, so between now, a few things could happen between now and June 30th. If there was enough changes in this, we might have to call an emergency session of our board and the finance committee between now and June 30th. If it's just simple changes, I would like the authority to be able to sign to keep this moving along so we don't have to meet again as a board. And when I say simple changes, I guess we can make that determination. Ryan, you can poll the board at any given time and saying, do you think this needs to come back? Or I can make a decision as well.
With the guidance of.
With the guidance, obviously with the guidance.
And we can, and I think similar to what we had talked about with the sewer, I think the sewer MOU, where, you know, we can distribute it and let the members know what changes have been made, so it's clear.
Okay.
But you, in this case, you would be the signatory, or that the vote would be taken to authorize you, absent any material changes.
Yeah.
And we can affirm again what those changes are, so that the other board members know what changes have been made, so they're aware.
And the motion we drafted.
Yes.
It's also subject to our review and approval, so it would be our review and approval, and then your decision whether or not you were comfortable signing it or wanted to convene the board again for.
Yep.
If there aren't any questions, I can give verbally the proposed motion from town council.
I have a couple other questions. What happens if when we go out to bid, this thing comes in at 25 million? Can Boxborough back out at that point?
Well, we wouldn't have enough authorization to proceed with the project. We would have to go back to the Littleton town meeting. So that would be a whole thing, obviously.
I mean, it would be, that this project would be, in essence, the way it's structured now, dead, if that happened, if it came in that high.
Right, unless there was some other supplementary funding from somewhere, yeah.
Well, there'd be a heck of a lot of water being pumped somewhere. Somewhere between here and Boxborough, there'd be a lot of nice wetlands.
Yeah.
That's a,
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do you want us to talk about changes we made between Friday and now, or do you want to proceed?
so this was the Friday version we just looked at?
I think actually the version, this is the one that Avery had sent out this afternoon. So we just kind of went through that, so I think we're okay.
It's all blurry.
No, understood, that's okay.
Our board reviewed that latest
Version.
tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, and our apologies, because it's a fluid.
No, I understand.
matter,
This was right from the
so-
start, we knew it was going to be.
Right, there's just a lot of changes, so it's generally not how I like to present information to the board, not ideal, but again, so many parties are involved, it does get a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that if there wasn't a June 30th deadline looming, based on the town meeting vote, that, you know, we would have wanted to provide a letter and, give you time to think about it, give us time, give us all time.
Yeah.
So I'll say I'm okay with going forward in the agreement. I would ask that we don't actually spend any more money than we have to until the general legislation is passed, because that does bother me a little bit that if this takes a while to get going, we now have a deadline that, we could be under construction and then they could say, nope, this agreement's null and void because the deadline passed and now we're on the hook. So we've tried hard so that we're not on the hook. That's the one clause I see where we're still on the hook. So we shouldn't actually be spending any more than we have to, slowly move this forward until the general legislation passes.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. The only money that the water department's spending is on portions of the project that we would be doing anyways, like the Taylor Street well and the transmission main, aside from legal fees, which are minimal in the grand scheme of things. So. Not that minimal, but
It's the other thing you never asked.
Biting my tongue.
Okay, I think we're ready to, can we hear your motion?
Sure. Okay, so this is the motion that's proposed by Town Council, which is move that the Select Board vote to authorize the Chair to execute an intermunicipal agreement subject to final review and approval by Town Council between the Town of Boxborough and the Town of Littleton regarding the provision of water.
Second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved. Moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, it is unanimous. Thank you for all the work in this and continued work to come, no doubt. So, thank you.
So,
Especially, also, I just wanted to interrupt. You acknowledge Bruce Trumbull tonight. I just wanted to thank the board for acknowledging him. The 23 years and what he's brought to this town is huge. We're going to miss him.
Yeah.
But
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay.
I think I throw in your voice.
All right, we have an update on the town center sewer project. Is that?
So I would probably put this over to
Matthew
and Chuck to provide an update on where we stand. We've had a lot of conversations going on over the last few weeks, and so Matthew, Chuck, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
that's fine.
I believe we're still waiting for the MOU between, nominally us and Lipoli. There seemed to be some desire on Lipoli's part to have the water commissioners involved as well, but that's not legally necessary. Strictly speaking, the capacity reservation is between the water commissioners and Lipoli.
That's been signed.
And that has been signed.
That's
so we are still waiting for the finality of the memorandum of understanding between the town and Lipoli to fully define the funding, how that $9.5 million is going to be apportioned. Basically, I believe what we are trying to do is to allow the Lipoli company to use that money through the town initially for their initial infrastructure build on 550 King Street, and as in order to protect our risk, protect ourselves, we will ask Lipoli for a $9.5 million letter of credit, with the hope that we will never need to draw on it, and that he will be able to repay prior to us needing that $9.5 million for the sewer infrastructure. But in the worst case, if he can't do it, we would draw on that line of credit and use that as part of the as payment for part of the contracts that we have signed already. Am I missing anything there, Chuck? You think that's
Fair assessment.
Okay. And I think the line of credit was created. Our legal team created that, correct? The letter of credit.
Letter of credit. So there was some debate. I believe the last version we saw of that MOU, Lipoli had proposed a bond, which I don't think was going to fly with our bond counsel. I think Steve Venuti and some of FinCom had some reservations about it just because of the mechanics of getting money from the bond as opposed to money from a line of credit or letter of credit.
Essentially, we're agnostic as to what it's called as long as we have access to the fund.
Right,
expedient access to it as well, right.
Because of the cash flow issues with the sewer, we do need to be repaid by the state and make sure we have access to all the funds that we have been authorized to borrow so that we don't get into a position at the end of the fiscal year where we're negative on the project, because that will affect our free cash authorization and mess up all kinds of stuff.
And there's time certain attached to that as far as repayment.
Right. So I think that's where we're at.
So backing up one more step with the Lipoli company signing the agreement, the capacity agreement, the water commissioners and water department have signed the contracts so that the sewer can proceed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Correct.
And that reservation agreement is tied to that property and the special permit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was just, that was the next step.
No,
I just
it-
wanted to make sure that we had done the next step and everyone was aware that the next step had happened.
oh, yes, it's happening.
If I may?
Yeah.
Do we know whether Sal has secured that letter of credit?
We do not know.
Yeah. So right now, that's sort of in between the attorneys and working to clarify that. So still waiting for an update on that and making sure that whatever it is that it's acceptable to our attorneys, that the town's protected.
The financial securities,
Yeah.
that piece of it with bond counsel, like which way, if it is a bond, and bond counsel is okay with it, then we're okay with accepting that. So I think they're just trying to iron that out right now.
And how often are you guys meeting weekly still? Is that?
No.
So, yeah, right now, it's sort of we're having the attorneys
Okay,
speak to
okay.
one another, so it's
What
kind
could
of a
go
little
wrong?
pause for us, but we'll continue to keep the board updated on it. Matthew, that was a great update on where things stood. so
Yeah, the
thank
last
you.
time we met was when Sal was here. That was, and since then, it's just been trying to hammer out the details.
Yeah, okay.
So Chuck and I haven't been involved, and I'm
Right.
not sure that the water commissioners have.
Yeah, I think
You
it's been,
have.
no, it's
Just
just
the-
been,
just the
right,
attorneys.
because it's really hammering down on those questions of like, okay, we need, this is what we need in terms of the letter of credit and things like that. So it's still, that's still being worked on. Other nuances of language at this point. But we'll report back on the board as we have any updates.
Okay, thank you for the updates. All right, let's move on to public input. I know we had some, I believe, we had some questions coming in
Sure, yeah.
regarding.
Yeah, so I
project.
know we go around the table.
Yeah, I
so
did want
if
to reach out to you first.
No, I appreciate that. I wanted to make the board aware that we've received, and this is what the chief has generously stayed on to report on, but we've received a number of emails regarding the safety of the intersection of Harwood and Foster. So a lot of the residents have been reaching out to us. There was an accident there last week. It is my understanding the chief can confirm at this intersection, I believe the parties were coming. There's no stop sign on Foster, but there is on Harwood.
That's correct.
Yeah, and the party on Harwood just blew through the stop sign and then hit the vehicle on Foster. So, Chief, I think maybe you just give a little update on that particular accident, which kind of was the source of a lot of these complaints.
Okay. I just wanted to, we typically don't do public input by email, but I think this one, much like last meeting, where we had a room full of people that were
Right.
very interested in the orchard, so having this discussion, I think we'll kind of get ahead of any discussion.
And these are great, and these are great comments too, because we want to share that with the board and, working with the chief and Steve Yonley, I'll give a little update on what our DPW director had to say as well. So this is the kind of feedback during public input that we want to keep you abreast of, and the fact that we're following up on some of these things. But maybe the chief could tell us a little bit about the accident and the conditions.
But you hit the nail on the head. It was, driver error. The driver was cited for a stop sign violation. Ryan did send out an email this morning, first thing, asking us to look into it. Director Yonley and myself have already discussed it. It was supposed to be some sight lines moved back a little further at some point in time. Prior to this, I believe it's happening this week. He is going to update some of the signage. As far as it being a dangerous intersection, it's not an ideal intersection, but I ran a report in regards to our IMC to see how many crashes we've actually had there in 10 years. And in 10 years, we've only had 6 accidents in that location. So I think if we are able to cut the vegetation back a little better, make some sight lines a little easier, and update the signage there, make it a little more clear, I think we'll be in good shape.
And Steve Yonley had also talked about improving some of the markings as well, using some some warnings on the road to slow down, because it's a tough turn. The basis of the complaints, have some merit. It can be a bit of a tough intersection.
This was visited about 4 years ago, I'm not sure. I think you remember, Chuck, we discussed this, where they were talking about putting a micro circle in, and then they talked about a four-way intersection. Four-way intersection wouldn't be feasible because of people coming down off the hills to stop, especially if we had icy weather. So we just need to improve that intersection the best we can, and just pretty much upgrade the signage, the line painting, the markings, and cut some of the vegetation back, and I think it'll be a moot point at that.
And I believe when it was, when we did the research before, actually it was before your tenure as chief, I think it's come up a couple of times.
Yeah.
I know with Chief King's administration, I think you brought forward some research during that time as well. And it was operator error in each instance, as I recall. So people come over the hill going too fast, and if someone's trying to pull out from one of the stop signs, they're gonna get clipped.
And I think that's the objective, is trying to encourage more traffic calming in that particular area, to get people to be aware of what they're coming across. Most people who live in town know that it's a tough piece, or tough area. But for those that aren't, we want to make sure we put that signage on, encourage them to reduce their speed, understanding they're coming up into.
That would be my only
education and mitigation.
Yeah, I mean, I go through that intersection at least twice a day.
We'll send a ticket tomorrow.
I guess, excuse me? I think the question, Mike, and obviously going through that intersection my whole life, many times, the closest accidents that I've seen are typically non-residents that are driving the Harwood Ave, don't realize that it's not a four-way stop.
That's correct.
That's probably the common, they think that somehow people coming down Foster are going to stop, and so they kind of inch out, and you're like shot. So that would be, how you mitigate that,
I think Director Yonley spoke to it earlier. He's going to, basically, the markings in the roadways, make it a little more...
Before the turn, maybe.
Before the turn, back, maybe look at some flashing lights at some point.
Stop at it.
Do the stop signs say two-way stop on them? I can't recall. I drive through it at least 6 times a day.
No, I think they're just stop signs,
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe something we can think about.
that's helpful.
When you cut the vegetation back, is it all going to be on right away, or do you know if there's private? You have to go
No,
on
it's all right away.
Okay.
Yeah. Same as like we did on Russell Street. I think the town has a right of way of 12 feet from any intersection that we can deem necessary that's dangerous at that point in time.
One other question. How did the feedback about this come in? I didn't see any emails to the board.
My understanding is that the accident was reported, it got on Facebook, and then someone posted, if you have any issues or concerns, please contact interim town administrator. Yes,
That's my go-to post.
My alias on Facebook.
So, no, and again, this is you want to encourage this kind of feedback, because, we can't, that there are things that occur that we need to be aware of from the public, and this is, these kind of traffic issues that come up, and this isn't a new thing in terms of this particular intersection. And I think we agree that there's improvements that we can make, and, this is exactly the kind of, this is a good thing and a good opportunity to have this conversation and keep the board updated about where things go with it.
And eventually we'll have sidewalks there. I mean, that's coming on that
coming.
street, so that'll also cut back a lot of that. But
narrows the throat.
I would ask, going forward, this particular one, we could probably put in your updates or at the beginning, just to. That's another way to get ahead of the
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's, and I think that this is a members' update, so I'm kind of, there's the.
I'm just thinking that in general, if there's not a crowd here to talk to it on
mail,
and we didn't know that it came in or someone.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Sure. Okay. That's fair enough. Good point.
I think it would actually be worth reaching out to the residents and having like a mini meeting on what's going on, considering whether or not to put in, the stop sign like on Russell Street, the blinks, or other lights, and talk about it. I mean, it has been an issue. I remember a couple of years ago where an ambulance was there responding to an accident, and the ambulance got hit. So there's a lot of issues, and I can see where there's a four-way stop sign wouldn't necessarily work, but
Yeah,
we
definitely.
probably need to come up with a solution. And it'd be nice to, get the residents' input involved as much as we can, so that they know what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's phase 2, but right now, I think you guys have a plan, right?
Yeah.
I think, unless he,
It's already, yeah, Steve's already on board with that. We're taking the measures we have to, and then we'll just take it from there.
If I just had one question. I've seen a lot of near misses with bicycles flying
Yeah,
across, or, crossing without stopping at the stop signs, but as I understand it, mass law now allows them to
They have to
not stop, or they do
No, they have to stop at a stop sign.
Okay,
They have to obey all those rules of the road.
cool.
So we can sit on the other side and just start writing tickets for that.
But I would be going on Foster Street back from the train, and
Yeah.
that's terrifying in its own, because not only are you going down the hill, there's lots of traffic because everyone's leaving from the train. And
Yeah.
oh goodness.
Yeah.
No.
It's awful,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a terrible, terrible road.
Yeah, it's
But I've
tricky.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for staying. for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on. I think I'm hanging on to the time. We have public input, so, come on up to the mic.
Rob Houston, 55 Jennifer Street. I just sat here, I'm looking at an empty room,
Yeah.
which is odd. But I just wanted to say I stayed, and I wanted to say thanks for all you guys are doing, even when nobody's here.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Rob, you can come up anytime. Thank you.
This gentleman's upset you called him nobody.
But now I can go home.
Good night.
All right, that's good public. All right, let's get to member updates. I'll start on this side. Karen, do you have anything?
Let's see. I attended sustainability on June 15th. Good things afoot. Mass Energize is, the status and funding was updated. It sounds like the website is in process. So that's exciting. And I attended the PMBC meeting on June 14th, and that, again, good things afoot. They just got their, another estimate done for the senior center. The reconciliation is done, or is being done, pardon me. And there is an open question about soil mitigation efforts, so they're working on that. That's about it. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
I attended the solar panel unveiling, but I'll let Mark talk about that in more detail because it's his baby. I got to hold the ribbon when the giant scissors cut the ribbon, which is exciting. I think it's interesting to talk about that citizen feedback. I mean, Ryan, you sort of alluded to how important that is, and I agree. And one of the experiences I've had on social media and at the office hours is people don't realize they can just email us or talk to us, and it's actually, things get done as a result. I'm astonished that people don't understand the sort of where the information flows. Nevertheless, I would encourage everybody, it is very important for them to speak to us or to you or however it gets to us. I had and on that line, so apparently there are a couple of tree stands in the orchard property down below, in the wooded lot below the field next to the lake. And this was brought to my attention by the Conservation Trust. I'm going to go walk it with Rick Finley tomorrow morning. He believes that these are two stands that have already been, the notices were put on last fall. And so I spoke to Ed Mullen because in the past he has dealt with this. So my intention is probably if those notices are there, I would like to have them taken down. They're not authorized to be on town land. We don't have a policy. I would also like to say we should probably have a meeting and have an item on to generate a policy on hunting on town land. I think there is a Massachusetts law that gives towns the power to determine.
So we talked about that with Ed.
Did come up.
We did.
And then I thought someone was going to be working on a policy or something.
I think
that
Ed
had
was,
to
and then
go.
he left.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember if he was still an employee at the time, but
Yeah,
I also
no,
thought it was something that had to go to town meeting.
It's
So-
it's
So we
possible.
might need to check to make sure that it's on the warrant.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't know if that's necessarily, I'd have to check with town council about that. I mean, it's town land, and so as such, that's under your purview, so I don't
So
necessarily.
there was the town land and then the private land, whether you're allowed to put a stand on private land even if you weren't authorized to. There was that, I remember there was a lot of discussion, so.
Correct, and I don't remember.
Thank you for
the
following
details.
up with Ed on it.
Yes, so I'm going to follow up on that. I hope that, I guess Sudbury got in a lot of trouble by taking tree stands
yeah.
down
Yeah.
that weren't on town land, so we're going to be very careful about where they are, at any rate. The other thing about the orchard is I got so much feedback about the orchard that a lot of people have reached out to me to talk about what to do about it. And I've had people from outside the town, someone wants to do goat, mowing, and there's another person who has someone who's interested in potentially, looking at leasing it. So I really want to try to tap into that and try to create a citizens group of some sort to at least have some action. So this is just a general statement to anybody who's listening. Yeah, talk to me because I want to have stuff happen. The last one is, there was an email from Kevin Baker about the IT support for the health department, and I didn't see a response. I was curious if that got resolved.
We actually had a meeting today with Mark, with the Board of Health.
Okay, great.
Talked about some of
Awesome.
that, yes.
And then I'm the town administrator search committee. I got sworn in today. We're going to start that up soon.
Right.
That's a lot of stuff. That's it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
can I have backsies?
An alibi.
Backsies, no backsies.
So I was remiss, I did not thank Littleton Elder and Human Services for hosting a breakfast on June 12th and having me meet with folks. And as the new select board member, it was a great conversation. There were I would say about a dozen people there, and got to talk about, what's a concern to them, and communication was way up high on that list. So we took some immediate action. The LHS press link is going to go into the Elder and Human Services what's it called? Newsletter.
The broadcaster.
Yeah. And so folks were excited, folks were looking forward to being able to get to the LHS press summaries that way. But yeah, I wanted to thank Liz and Nicole for hosting me. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Chuck?
I just wanted to say congratulations to all the graduates, whether it's Littleton High School or one of the Parker Charter or Bishop Girton or St. John's Prep or whatever school you graduated from, as well as the college graduates. And in that same vein, school's getting out over the next week or so, and so there's going to be a lot more kids riding bikes to the lake and a lot of activity out there. So just beware. So congratulations to all the grads.
So as Ryan mentioned, we met with the Board of Health today to get things going and on their health agent, health director, whatever the position's being called
Health
now.
director.
And kind of set up processes going forward for how they interact with employees and the agent and on Neshoba. And I thought it was a very productive meeting and hope for many more going forward. I wanted to thank the Littleton Lyceum. They had a very successful program on Friday to close out their season, and looking forward to the start next year. They're looking for new members for the board, so if anyone's interested, it's a very low commitment. I also attended the U.S. AP History presentations over at the Historical Society a couple of Sundays ago. The kids, they did it differently this year. They set it up as like mini museum pieces, and the kids were there to talk about it. It was very well attended. The kids did an awesome job. So thanks to the Ms. Guinness and the teachers for organizing it, and the kids for doing awesome presentations. I wanted to, as Matthew mentioned, we were at the solar panel reception, which was well attended. The solar panels are very functional on the roof now and generating a lot of power, saving, I think in May, that cut the electric bill by about 50%. So that was good. We're lobbying hard to get funding for solar panels on the senior center when it's being built. And along those lines, I recently saw that, I believe it was Drake-it, their town meeting approved $2.3 million to put solar panels on three school buildings in town. And they got contracts basically from the state to buy the power that more than pay for the solar panels and any interest charges. So I hope we can do something, look more into that going forward as our school roofs are repaired.
Or Shaker Lane is built.
Or Shaker Lane is built. We can start doing more partnerships between the schools and the town and LELD on these things. As Karen mentioned, the senior center is moving along. The current estimates are a little higher than was hoped for, so there's some work going on to figure out how to resolve those. One thing that we mentioned a long time ago when we started with the senior center project was when we were building the library, there was concern with the Shattuck Street residents about traffic, and we talked about doing some outreach and possibly changing traffic patterns or construction traffic patterns. And as we approach the date, I think it's time we need to make sure we do that very soon, since theoretically construction starts in 6 weeks or so. So I don't know how exactly we want to approach that, but I'll leave that up to you and Mr. Yonley to work out if it's bringing into one of our meetings to discuss or something else.
But are you talking about during construction or permanently?
I would say both. We talked at one point, you mentioned like potentially barrier, dead-ending it or reversing the one-way or something. We just need to figure out something soon.
That different concepts, yeah.
Yeah, so, because construction theoretically starts in August, so.
Yeah, construction, it's a pretty good point. I think it's initially, more importantly, how are the construction vehicles, do we have options to bring them in? Long-term, I mean, we're not moving a senior center. That's what, I know that was a big thing with the library. We were afraid of all this new traffic. Well, the library didn't move, it moved.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot more traffic with construction, I'm
Yes.
sure, also because the house is being used as the staging area, so there will be construction via, at least, pickup trucks on Shattuck Street. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Maybe get an idea of what the residents would like to see. That'd probably be the thing. We can reach out if they temporarily, if we're making that a two-way out there and their vehicles have to come in that way.
Whatever the suggestions are, I think we should explore them and quickly.
And involve some of the residents.
And we
to
should
make sure that they
yes.
know that we're,
100%.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. I don't have a lot. I apologize for not being involved really in the office hours. The two ladies in my life, my wife and my daughter, both have had surgeries the last 2 weeks, and I've been playing the nanny and driving and everything. So, but I will get into the office hours. I will become more engaged in that. But I just wanted to let everybody know we still are doing office hours every Friday, so 1 to 3. Come and talk to your select board member, whoever is there, and it's another way to reach out to us.
Can we make sure that the select board email is somewhere more prominent on the website as well? People keep asking, like, how do you reach out to us? And I say selectboard@littletonma.org, but it's not obvious to do that.
Well, good plug, though. And, I do want to thank, I don't know who did it, Ryan, whether, I noticed I'm finally the chair on the select, on the website. I was going to let you stay there because you were probably getting all the flack, but, so thank you for getting that updated.
Just spam about aluminum siding recommendations.
All right, next, we have,
The license, if I may, Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, licensing for Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza, the change of manager, they asked to be moved over to July 10th, so we'll pass over that.
Get that out of the way. I'm going to jump right to B here, just because Mr. Gale's here. So we're going to have a shade tree committee, shade tree bylaw discussion. Mark, I know you wanted to bring this up, so.
Yeah, so just as a point of introduction, I listened to Matt's speech or presentation he's presented at the Planning Board and Conservation, I believe, on a potential shade tree bylaw, and I thought it was important for him to come and give notice here and more screen time and figure out how we can help. So,
come on.
Good. Thanks for having me. The best part about coming in for a shade tree update is I come bearing gifts.
Yes.
And this was got it today, so everything worked out. But if you didn't know, thank you everyone who helped with this, all the different parts of the town. Lots and lots of people finally made this happen, but this is our very first year as a Tree City USA. Yes. So allow me.
And I did want to introduce you to the public. This is Matthew Cahill. So everybody knows me.
Yep, Matthew Cahill, 23 Elmwood Road.
Thank you.
And Shade Tree Committee. This is your number one, so there's all sorts of goodies in here. Wow. I don't actually know what's in there.
Probably.
Is it ticking?
Usually I have
Is it ticking?
Are there cookies? I will share.
These are the street signs, so you can
great.
hang these up wherever.
Oh,
that's
nice.
great.
Oh, nice.
I don't know where those are going to go, but and then I think it's different stickers, and you can put them on the signs. as you
That's
move
fantastic.
along. Very cool. This is it's an annual award, and just I guess quick summary of what Tree City USA is. It's something Shade Tree Committee kind of promotes. Department of Conservation, Recreation, Urban and Community Forestry program promotes. It's a national program from Arbor Day Foundation. That's why you see their symbol and information on everything. And it's to encourage people to have a more robust or get involved in urban and community forestry. So essentially having trees and canopy in your community. Communities like ours are fortunate that we already have it, and we're just trying to keep it from all disappearing, you know. So there's 4 standards you have to meet, essentially having a tree board or committee, which we do, and have had for a while. The other members could not make it here today, but you know, it's Steve Witten, our tree warden, and 4 of us from the citizens of town volunteering to be on the tree committee. Tree bylaw ordinance is what we're here to talk about today. Fortunately, in Massachusetts, I only know one general law. It's Chapter 87. That's the one that regulates shade trees, empowers the tree warden. Tree wardens have been around for over 100 years in Massachusetts, and they are given the legal authority over the public shade trees and trees in the right-of-way. So we have that. Spending at least $2 per capita, which we make, through our various programs. The money to Shade Tree, Littleton Light and Water has been doing a lot with tree giveaways and tree plantings. So it all adds up in the work that Highway Department does for our tree care, tree planting. And then having a proclamation, sort of a celebration, an event. And thanks to Shade Tree and to our country gardeners who do the tree seedling giveaway to 3rd graders every year at the school. And that's been going on for many, many years. And we turn that into a sort of Arbor Day celebration and event, give out information to the kids on trees and why they're good and where they should plant their trees. And we're doing a project right now where we're trying to get photographs of little kids grown up next to the 3rd grade trees from various years. So we started sort of collecting that. If you get a chance or someone's doing the internet, you can go to our revamped Shade Tree website. We've got the tree town guidelines that Amy Green Conservation helped get a grant for. That's now posted, and so that's on the Shade Tree website. Recommendations of various trees, really, really good stuff. There was a contractor that did the work, but it's got pictures, shows you the dimensions, shade tolerant, water, drought, whatever. So really good information on what trees to plant and where. If people in town are interested, they can go to the town Shade Tree website. So we've been busy. Thank you, Select Board, for helping fund the Shade Tree Committee. I know Kim Ahern, Rick Finley, people have been around for many, many years, talked about how they were funded back in the day. They planted trees all around town. The funding kind of dwindled, but then the last couple of years it came back. Unfortunately, it was because we have emerald ash borer, it killed a bunch of trees on the common. So really that initial push 3 years ago was to replant the common phased-in period of 3 years, which has just finished. So if you are out on a stroll or driving past the common, if you notice the new trees, that's the work that we've done with the funding to date.
And Fay Park too, correct?
Yeah, so, yep, I was going to get to that. That's the right now one, but this is sort of the historical context. And that's finished. Well, I won't bore you with what all the trees are. You can go look and, you know, it's
I was
beautiful.
going to ask you the question when we were discussing, because I did know.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I'll tell you this, there's no ash.
But there's a lot of different tree that I didn't
So
expect.
we're promoting diversity. You know, this is the problem, is that you put in all one type of tree and then the Asian longhorn beetle comes, or the emerald ash borers, or whatever the next evil bug is, it's going to come and destroy all your trees. So we mix it all up, again, kind of looking at those tree guidelines that we have published. We have a large palette of tree selections of tolerant trees, urban trees, climate adapted trees, whatever you want to call them. But they should do really well in those sites and locations. If you notice by the monuments, we've got American elm trees. You know, it's obviously Veterans Memorial. So and they're thriving. Those are the biggest ones right now. They're really shot up. We had to replace the red oak that's right on the corner, so that just got replanted. There's a line of flowering cherries going down in front of the convenience store there. There's a linden tree, which is one on the other side of the common. It looked like it was doing so well. We put one in on the side towards the monument. And then across the way, it's a nice mix. So there's hornbeams, hop hornbeams, swamp white oak, Kentucky coffee tree. I think one of the newer ones was either a linden or a sweet gum. So in general, very diverse, robust planting. And this is what we're trying to recommend to everyone in our meetings and guidelines and notes. And in general, that's what these bylaws will help sort of strengthen and give, you know, written information to people so that they can make informed decisions. But that was leading up to now, which is Fay Park. So we got our funding again this year. Thank you very much. And we use that to plant trees. And we were talking with Parks Department, put in a tree right by the boathouse, you know, at Long Lake Pond. There was a pine that had to come down, so it was replanted with a large maple tree. So working with parks a little bit, they had mentioned that they were looking to get trees back in Fay Park. So we've been in collaboration with them and the Parks Commission, and they approved the planting plan, and so those just went in. So again, thanks Steve Whitten, Highway Department, for putting the trees in. So part of the discussions that we've been having with the town is just long-term maintenance and care, and not just paying for the tree. You know, that's one thing you can do. But also make sure that they get water and they thrive. So it's the most critical part is those first 2 to 3 years and making sure that they're watered. Obviously, you saw what happened with the drought. You know, we've had a couple of these droughts hit us pretty hard in the fall. Thankfully, you know, Steve's been pretty diligent about watering. Apparently, there's some watering issues in the town. I don't know if you guys know this. I'm just learning. So it's like they're all different meters and they're different departments. So, you know, highways over here, but then, you know, Parks Department has their own water bill. You know, so Alicia's like, well, I'm taking these trees, but how am I going to maintain them? You know, I don't have the staff, I don't have the money. So Shade Tree, we have the funds. So we said, well, let's spend, we have 5,000. So we spent about up to 4,000 on trees and supplies and all that. And what we want to do is then use the remaining funds to pay for the watering for the Common, for Fay Park, for Highway Department and Parks Department. We talked briefly with, let me just make sure I got the right names here. It's Corey from Water Department, and was in agreement essentially that they can bill Shade Tree and we can make sure that the trees are supplied with water because we want them to survive and thrive. So this all makes sense and this is all great and everyone in general is agreeing to this, but the end of the fiscal year's looming. So if anyone here can help us get a bill from Water Department, I've not been able to secure that yet. What we want is just to get a bill for those meters. You know, maybe Steve Whitten can help tell you everything you need to know, but as long as we can get it now, we can pay it with our funds, have that done, set aside, the trees are then paid for, you know, as the new fiscal year kicks in, we figure out what the new funding is. We don't want the trees to lapse. So that's the rationale behind that, if that all makes sense. Any questions on that real quick? Okay, great. So I don't know who's to follow up with or
I'd
whatever.
follow up with Steve.
Oh, okay.
Steve should be the one.
Okay, and Corey with Water Department, Corey Godfrey, sorry.
And the idea is that it would then, we'd bill it against the Shade Tree.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and we had some rough costs figured out, so.
Yeah, so I would say follow up with Steve Whitten.
Okay, so in theory, that's all great, so just want to make sure we're all on top of it so that we get it done before the end of fiscal. And the trees just went in, they look great, you know, if you've been past Bay Park. So again, that's sort of, they looked at the old planting plans for the park and the design, and it was to have large shade trees sort of around the park that people can enjoy, and then as you move a little bit more into the interior, it's more of the smaller flowering, you know, pretty trees. So we've done that, replicated the old planting plan idea with the newer trees. Again, similar mix of species and functionality, and you know, it's a wet site, so we're putting in trees that could tolerate that, and so I think it's going to be really great over time, and you know, it'd be a nice place to get some shade on all the events that we have out there. So excited about that.
So just to interject real quick, so I live on Star Hill, which is right there.
Yep.
We've had a lot of, all the trees along there, all the pine trees have died because of salt, I think. So I'm wondering, you obviously took that into account when you planted those next to Fay Park.
Yep, and we didn't put in pines. So pines are having a lot of conifers are having a rough time. If you've noticed, like what's happening with the white pines, a lot of these things are, it's a confluence of a lot of native pests and diseases and pathogens, but it's just because of the stresses of the drought and because of what's happening, a lot of trees are just getting stressed, and conifers in general are really kind of taking it on the chin. So we're putting in, again, tolerant shade trees that should survive and thrive and do well in those locations. Any other quick questions on planting or anything like that? I mean, as we wrap up the town project, the town-specific projects, I think overall the plan is to maybe start going back to those right-of-way plantings that Shade Tree has done historically, kind of working with residents and getting interest, and then being able to put trees in, you know, kind of those setback trees. So it goes in with the town, but then essentially the resident becomes the steward of that tree. So they'd say, yes, I want to care and maintain this tree, and you know, then they would help us with that, so we wouldn't have to incur all the costs of going around watering all the trees, which obviously we know is an issue. So that's sort of the longer term focus. And then in terms of longer term focus, tree bylaw. So essentially, components of a shade tree bylaw is, and again, this is covered under Mass General Law, so all this stuff already exists. We have our tree warden, you know, we have public shade trees jurisdiction. You can't go cutting down a public shade tree, you know, you'd have to come to the town, you know, so there's a lot of, it's not written, you know, we don't have it kind of in the notes somewhere for people to refer to, so a lot of cities and towns do this to sort of ratify that, and, you know, just in general, just say that here's an example purpose. You know, you tell them why we want the shade trees. Hey, they're good. They're going to do all these benefits for us. You know, they're worth keeping. Definitions. That way, we all know what we're talking about. How trees are measured. I'm a forester. A lot of the forestry terms like diameter, breast height, or canopy, or drip line. You know, critical root zone. So that'll all be spelled out in here so people understand it. I think this will be really great and applicable for all the development that we have coming in town. You know, we don't have to lose our trees and then replant them. We can protect the trees during construction, and then we still have this giant tree. It's great. You know, it's just much more cost effective and better long term. So if we can start getting you know, tree protection written up in here, so the contractors can turn to it, can read it. Oh, this makes sense. Okay, I have to put a fence here. I have to do that there. You know, just makes it easier for everybody, and everyone's on the same page. It'll talk about just authority and power. That's, you know, tree warden. It talks about the establishment of a tree committee, you know, as an advisory board and what we do. So again, everything that we're already doing, we will put in our sort of tree planting guidelines, our care standards, again, defining, you know, what a critical root zone is, how to keep a tree protected, tree roots during construction. You know, we can put all these sort of things in, and then just spell out tree hearings, if someone wants to if there's a public hearing for a tree removal, something like that, that everything's very upfront, out in the open, and people know what to do and who to talk to. So the very basic version of this will be, I'm not going to say easy, it'll be relatively simple. Shade Tree's more than happy. We already have a draft in the works. We've really been focusing on planting right now, so nothing has really happened since I think maybe last time I brought that up to conservation. But as we transition into summer, we'll have a couple more meetings, start getting a little bit more serious about it. And then when we have a draft ready, we can bring it to you all and to whoever else wants to see it, and we can start talking about, you know, what we want in our tree bylaw and how to move it forward from there.
Great.
It's great ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, it's the first time I've heard of it, a tree bylaw, so this is, look forward to see what that looks like. and how we can-
Sorry, there's a lot of great examples too. If you just want to see stuff in the meantime, Department of Conservation, Recreation, Urban Forestry, you can just Google that, it'll come up. And then on that website, there are examples of nearby towns, and probably Acton, Lexington, Concord, you can see. And there's degrees, right? So all of this is just to get us to the floor.
Yeah.
You know, we're not even there yet, which is a little odd. It is a requirement of like Tree City USA status. Like I said, we're sort of grandfathered in just under that general law, but they're going to be upping their standards, and they're going to be requiring, you know, town-specific ordinances and bylaws. So we'll get there in time for, you know, a year from now. But yeah, check out some of the other towns. Some of them are, you know, they get really into, you know, tree protection, really high-level stuff. Like Cambridge, you know, they put out a master plan for urban forestry. It involves, you know, regulating trees on like all sort. It's 150 pages, whatever it is. You know, it's insane. Not saying that that's where we're going to go. I'm just saying let's get to the floor. We'll just get our foot in the door and get it started so that we're at, you know, sort of bare minimum. I hate to say bare minimum, but you know, our first step in a series of steps.
Right, well, it's great work. I mean, you're doing great work. It's very visible now, obviously, when you put a tree in the ground.
Yeah.
Public space.
I love your passion. I mean, it's just, you exude it. I mean, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
Any questions or?
I think it's great, and I hope we can do whatever I look forward to doing whatever we can to help move this along. So I think you originally were saying goal was to have it at May town meeting. Is that still true, or November,
I don't see why not. I mean, once we get the chance to actually sink our teeth into it this summer, I think, you know, we'll come up with a pretty feasible draft pretty quickly, and then I'm sure it's probably 5-6 months of kicking it around, you know, so.
But like you said, if you're not recreating the wheel, it's out there, so.
Yeah.
Other communities have it.
We can definitely utilize some of that.
Thank you.
All right.
That's great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you,
Take care, guys.
All right, we'll go back now. Just vote to disband the agricultural working group. Did everybody get a chance to see the discussion on that, on the emails?
Yes.
Everybody, any comments or questions, or you can?
Nope.
Okay. Then I
Move
will-
the select board vote to disband the agricultural working group.
Second.
Been moved by Mark, second by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, let's discuss the rescheduling of the select board retreat.
Okay, so we reached out to members to see offer days and what we could do in terms of scheduling our next retreat. We haven't necessarily heard back from everybody, but in terms of a mutual date that works for everybody, it looks like Wednesday, July 12th. I have it down as 1 to 5. We don't necessarily have to go to 5. We might get it earlier, but we're trying to do it again in the fire station conference room. Unfortunately, we had to postpone our last date. So I just wanted to, this is set up as a motion. It's not necessarily anything I want to, we don't need to do as a formal motion, but I just wanted to make sure as you're all here, whether or not the Wednesday, July 12th could be a possibility for you all.
Looks good.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna check it. Yeah, that's it.
It looks good right now.
Yeah, right now. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. And well, we can pencil that in if that's okay with the board. And then I would propose. I know we've asked for some input. We've received some input from members already. If you haven't sent me anything that you want to bring up on that agenda, that would be useful. My proposal is going to be working with the chair to finalize sort of a big picture piece, sort of a general goals and objectives. I do want to make the board aware, we've brought aboard an interim finance director, Steve Cirillo, who will also be serving as our facilitator here at this meeting. So Steve's the former he's the former treasure collector in Newton and former treasure collector / finance director in Brookline. So brings a lot of experience. He's with the Collins Center, and sort of having him now to help Cap bridge the gap for the end of our fiscal year and what our needs are there on that front. He is, I believe, on board with us through the end of September. So
That's
we
just a
can
day a
closely
week.
look- Just a day a week, and this just happens to be the day that he is here, so he can do some work for us in the morning, but then also be with us in the afternoon to help facilitate this conversation. So,
Great.
Any other feedback that you have for items that, if I haven't heard from you already, please, if you guys could get that to me. We don't have to vote on this, but tentatively, looking at 1 PM, Wednesday, July 12th, in the fire station conference room.
All right, thank you. We don't need the motion, we'll
No,
just keep it how it is.
I don't
Thank
think we
you.
do. I don't think we do.
All right, let's move on to appointments. Fiscal year 2024 Town Board Committee appointments.
This is being proposed to you as a slate, Mr.
Yep.
Chair.
That's fine.
So really just updating those appointments where we still have gaps. So it's 7 reappointments / appointments to consider. So go back.
I am on 2 of them, so.
Yes.
Can we reject those 2 and?
I'm glad Julie's still.
Actually.
It's Julie Rupp, not Julia, I believe.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think it's.
Is it Julia?
I think technically it's, I think legally it's Julia, she goes by Julia.
Oh, okay.
Right.
My
Okay.
bad.
Okay.
Any comments?
No, let's do
No,
it.
let's, yeah.
All right, let's,
Move the select board vote to approve the slate of appointments in the table included in the packet.
Second?
moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We are skipping the.
Yeah, just to give the board an update, I know, as the board is aware, we're trying to sort of make up for some gaps in the TA office, and the board's been very supportive of seeking options and alternatives for that. So in this instance, we had a conversation last week with a former retired assistant town manager. However, when I spoke with Mr. Santilli today, he had indicated that he had thought some more about it over the weekend and decided to withdraw his application. So I'll still be looking at that. So just to make the board aware, right now we've got an interim finance director in place, just again, just trying to help us through bridging the end of the fiscal year and helping train Michelle and providing general support to our finance department. I probably will still continue to pursue some assistance on the ATA side of things. I want to make it very clear to the board that there's a lot of things that aren't getting done. You know, I appreciate Mark's comments about getting the people together in Shattuck Street. I mean, I'm not going to apologize to the board about what is on my plate right now and the capacity or lack thereof for us to get things done. So I'm you know, it's a little frustrating that this individual that backed off, but you know, it's a lot. So I just want to make that crystal clear to everybody in terms of questions or inquiries that you have made, you know, bringing in that just the day-to-day operations of the town are taking a tremendous amount of time, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of projects that I'm fearful that are falling behind. I mean, in fact, actually, after I leave this meeting, I have to go back to my office and continue on these things. So I just, you know, I appreciate the support the board's given. I just also want to be realistic, such that when those inquiries are made to me in terms of my capacity or my office's capacity to be responsive about those things. Just want to be forthright about it on that front.
And I do meet with Ryan every Wednesday, and we discuss some of these things, trying to keep at least the priorities and what, you know, we'll get more guidance from our board, obviously, when we're setting our priorities going forward. But we know with some of those hot, timely things that are right in front of us, like we'll talk about the IMA, well, these things all of a sudden become the most important things we can do. So we just have to keep up with the priority listing, keep moving it, and just recognize what the office is dealing with. And I'm glad you're sworn in. I think that's phase one, getting a full-time town administrator in. Keep looking for an ATA. I know this gentleman was retired. It wasn't someone that looked at Littleton at the last second and said, I'm not doing it. It was, someone's retired. It's like, that's a commitment that, you know,
Right. Yeah, when you're retired, I think we're talking like a 2-day commitment, but then, you know, it's coming into the office, and no one apparently wants to come to the office anymore, although I think I'm splitting the company, but others might disagree. But so be it. So we just, you know, we'll relook at it and see if we can get someone else to be a fit.
Thank you.
And I would ask that, you know, if there's things that you can push off onto us, then reach
Well,
out.
yeah, and that's part of the challenge, Mark, because, you know,
I know.
we talked about the interplay between administration and policy, so I struggle with that too. So it's difficult.
All right.
Extraordinary times, extraordinary measures,
Yep.
and all that, right? So.
Thanks for keeping us, and thanks for being so candid.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
Well, let's approve the minutes of
So,
June.
one other, I don't know that we can necessarily talk about it, but we talked about, at our last meeting, you were going to be the Affordable Housing Trust Fund representative, and was determined.
That was determined we could not do that.
You could
I
not do
believe.
that.
Yeah.
So I didn't, I don't know, it's obviously not on our agenda.
Jeannie Bracken has expressed interest in being on the Affordable Housing Trust.
No, but we needed so.
Is the liaison part of it?
No.
We talked about doing the appointments. You were going to do it as a select board representative rather than the housing authority. But then there's a issue that then two other boards would have quorums.
Right, so, but, okay. But if Jeannie wants to do it, she could be appointed as Ryan's representative. And then it wouldn't be any more board members than there are now.
Okay.
So I think we can discuss that another time. I think we can work it out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely all tangled up.
Yeah, okay.
That's not out of order, Mark. We were talking about appointments.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But you can, if you want to follow up with an email in terms of what you're proposing, and then we can, you know, the next meeting is July 10th, and we can bring it forward then.
One small correction to the minutes on page 110 of the packet. In the second paragraph, it just says $9.5 of MassWorks grants.
Yeah, that's it.
That should be $9.5 million of MassWorks grants.
You just killed my vacation.
And then there's a reference to Karen Wilson that I believe is meant to be me.
Okay, we'll fix that. Okay, all right. Okay, sure. And with those amendments, anything else?
Motion?
Move to approve the minutes of June 25th, 2023 as amended.
June 5th. June 5th.
June 5th. Did I say?
25th.
Okay.
Second?
And seconded. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
One other thing before we
sure.
adjourn. I forgot, in the open space planning meeting is tomorrow, 7 to 9 here. So I encourage everyone to show up and give their feedback. Input.
That's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, 7 to 9 in this room.
Yep.
Thank you. Motion, looking for motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Littleton. See you in July.